Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is Stonehearth dev stream number 265. All about oh, wait a minute. Am I muted? I sure hope I'm not muted. And as always, let me know if there are any weird technical difficulties with the stream, like if you can't hear me or if you are having trouble seeing me or something like that. But anyway, back to the beginning. This is Stonehearth dev stream number 265. All about concept art once again. And I'm Allie. I'm a concept artist here on the team, and we're gonna look into basically all the stuff I've been up to since the last time we streamed. So first things first, I'm not 100% ready, but the good news is this time we should have no trouble with the tablet. I managed to bring in my one that actually works and is super nice, and I love it. And that's not going to hold us up for 300 years. Like, I think we were spending 20 minutes last time trying to figure out why nothing was working. Or at least I was. You guys caught on to it before I did, and I unfortunately don't know my way around Windows worth a damn. So that was a fun time. Let's not do that again. Pop you guys over here where we can actually read what's going on. Howdy, don't call me Shirley. Your name is so green. Weird. I think the stream stopped. No, it says we're streaming, but I'm not actually seeing the stream on Twitch. Hopefully we're not having more of the weird problems from before. Interesting. Well, now I'm paranoid because what's on the... Oh, hey, we're back now. Ooh, very weird. I don't know how I feel about this. I'm gonna mute that. I think it came back. I am not really sure what's happening there. For some reason... Okay, in case you can't hear me or see me, I'm also typing this. But I pushed buttons, and now it looks like the stream is back on. Holler if that is in fact the case, or if not. More buttons may need pushing. Never a dull moment, right? Let's see. While that is happening, I'm gonna pop over to Drive and get some fun stuff for us to look at, to kind of kick off where we... Interesting. Okay. Over here, it looks like the stream is running. Like it's actually on Twitch right now. I have one more homework than usual. I'm sorry, Coasters Paul, but thank you for joining us. What do you see exactly? Do you see the person talking or the dev stream splash screen says, "Don't call me Shirley"? You should see the splash screen and also a little window in the bottom that is me talking at you guys. Okay, cool. So it looks like that was just some weirdness that was happening for a second. Sorry about that. Let me continue on and figure out where all of our cool stuff is. What is my password? I had to change my password recently, and now I'm having a hard time remembering what everything is and where everything goes. Ooh, cool, I found it. That didn't take very long at all. Okay. Don't call me. Hang on a minute. I'm trying to type a message. Let's see. Okay. I'm trying to make sure everybody is... Oh, wow. I hid you guys behind the screen of things. Cool. Alright, so I think, knock on wood, everything is doing okay. Like, it's updating over here, so... Okay, yeah, I can see that I just dropped that thing. There's a little bit of lag on my end. So it looks like the stream is running. Okay, so just in case the beginning of the stream was all messed up, hello! I am Allie. I am a concept artist on Team Stonehearth. And today we're going to look at some really cool stuff that I've been doing lately, just so you guys can kind of get a little bit of a behind-the-scenes look at what concept art on Stonehearth does and what that means. And if we get through all of it, we'll actually spend a little bit of time working on some of it. I'm in the middle of doing some studies specifically of X-ray mode and RPG mode, which hopefully you guys would be excited about seeing, where we'd be painting walls and things, which might sound kind of boring, but it's super neat, I promise. Thanks everybody for joining in on the stream today. Sorry for all of the running around in the beginning. I'm just trying to make sure that we're not having any more technical difficulties, certainly not with the equipment, and certainly not with the stream before we jump into the meat of it, just so everybody can actually participate in all this. Cool, alright, it looks like Don't Call Me Shirley has it all worked out. Welcome, guys. Welcome, Kyrell, or Chirel. You'll have to let me know if I'm murdering the pronunciation of any of your names. I will work on that. Okay, Farrell Gerald, welcome. Coasters Paul, and anybody else who might just be lurking and not really wanting to join in on the chat. I am super excited about this little thing you've got there for me, Chrome. Thanks for the many notifications and all the things. Internet is so helpful, and yet too many things. Cool. So, what have I been working on lately? Specifically, I have been doing some super fun studies of nighttime, actually. So, for anybody that currently plays Stonehearth, you might recognize this as nighttime in our beautiful game. And it is very blue and very dark and has these little lamps that don't really, like, affect a whole lot of a whole lot of much. So, like, the effect you get, the best way I can put it is, like, when I look at Stonehearth towns at night, they kind of remind me of, like, little, I don't know if you've ever dealt with them, but, like, little Christmas towns and window displays and things like that. You know, they're very quaint, they're very sweet. And the lights provide kind of a decorative accent rather than something that effectively lights up the area. Which, if you look at I can make this bigger. Oh yeah, what was that mentioned? The RPG mode. Yes. But no. We're not talking about going on RPG adventures, which does sound awesome. We are talking about RPG mode as in the building UI. But that's for later. Now I've gone and derailed myself because I glanced at chat and started doing things in the wrong order. So anyway, when I think about the, like, little town settings and things like that, the lights in such scenes tend to be more of, like, decorative accents and things you expect to see. And very much in the same way, nighttime in Stonehearth kind of feels the same way. Like, you have all of these lights everywhere, but the ambient world in Stonehearth at night is also very bright. So you don't really get the impression that the lights themselves are, like, really pushing back on the darkness, and it is still so light outside too, even though it's nighttime, that it feels very, to me it feels very beautiful, but it doesn't feel like there's, like, this incredible effect that the lights are having around them. And, like, so going into all of this was kind of like this question of, like, okay, what are some ideas that we can do to make nighttime in our game, like, so much more, like, appealing and fun and read more like nighttime, if that makes any sense. And I want to go in first by saying, like, one of the things that I actually love about nighttime in the game as we have it now is the sense of lightness. Like, I don't feel like the world around it is super oppressive. So going into these particular studies, it was very important to me anyway that wherever we wound up, especially, you know, because if we want the lights to have more of an impact, that does mean the world around it has to get darker in a lot of ways. Like, I don't ever feel like Stonehearth should look like it's taking place in a haunted forest full of monsters that are gonna come out and eat you, which maybe there are there, but we don't want it to feel like that. No. Okay, so let's just make sure we're not... Okay, so just call you Chair. Chair? Alright, I will call you Chair then. Cool, I just wanted to catch up on chat really quick to make sure that's not something I was missing. Are these the ones that are good to go? Oh, so these... Okay, so interesting. So, going into all of this... with the paintovers, with the like adventures into making nighttime in Stonehearth look super cute and super cool. Two main things stuck out to me. One was if we kind of reverse the relationship between the sky and the ground. One, instead of like, and I feel so bad about this because this is a huge idea for me, but this screenshot that we have shows so little of the sky. And it was important to kind of do the paintover pass on this scene. And by the way, this is not the final piece, this is one of the in-progress pieces, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit, but I wanted to set you guys up with a little bit of the information about the kind of the two main things that I thought would be super important about improving the look of nighttime in our game. And one, as I was saying before, kind of reversing the relationship of the ground and the sky. That way you have kind of like this richness and this like bluiness in the shadows, especially in the distance, as things like peel off and fade off into the distance. But the sky is actually depicted very much in lighter colors. This image is too bright. So again, once again, this is not the final version. This is one of the in-progress steps, and I should have prefaced it with that. So first of all, putting light in the sky so that nighttime didn't feel too oppressive, and then using colors to kind of sell that it was nighttime. The second thing was putting lights in the windows. So. And this is probably the first thing that strikes me as weird about nighttime in the game so far, is that you don't really have any indication that anyone lives here. It's always kind of dark and shady and creepy looking. The lights outside are super cute, but the inside is like, what's going on there? So beginning to experiment with adding those things, like can we see inside, and have that kind of like warmth coming out from the inside of these places. And of course, most of all is making sure that like light is having an effect like on the fronts of the buildings and things like that, a noticeable effect. So there was actually a lot of painting, especially in some of the later studies of this, where like just going in and pulling these details out again and again, making sure that they're not still like just blacking out and getting lost. Finally, there's this one little touch that I'm particularly fond of, and I really hope that it's a thing we can do. It is completely unimportant and insignificant, except it makes me happy, but I personally think that at nighttime, bright bells should actually light up. Cool, so let's go through some of these. This pass right here was me taking the daytime version of this scene and beginning to tint the colors and beginning to lay in like the lights that you see like in the sky and inside of the houses. And the reason this was important to do was because I didn't want to just take like the same screenshot and just start completely from scratch, like painting everything over again. One, that would take a whole lot of time. And two, no matter what we do, daytime in the game is effectively nighttime in the game. It's just going to be affected by like lighting and things like that. So it made more sense to create that paintover in a way that affected the colors in a daytime paintover as a way to kind of like simulate more of that, instead of starting from scratch and then somehow imagining that green would turn purple like the grass. Yes, I'm glad someone else thinks that having the bright bells light up would be cute. So this pass right here is those first couple of passes like on that grass, like just using like layer effect modes in Photoshop to start bringing that bright sap green into kind of more of a moody teal green and beginning to like add in more of those deeper blues in the background. But you're right, it's still way too bright in here. Who have we got? Welcome Pyroblaze and Pandemic Tyler and Baskip OP. Coasters Paul, you're not even kidding. Coasters Paul says, I feel sorry for whoever has to program the light out of window technology. So that's it seems all like super fun to, like we're gonna go into a corner over here and just make cool paintings and everything is gonna work out magically. In fact, the reason we're making all of these paintings is so we can all kind of gather around them, look at this like ideal version, this picturesque version of the game we have, and start thinking about like how could we actually do things like this practically. And of course, when you talk about those things, a lot of stuff comes up. One of it's like just like the cost of all the technology, how much it's actually going to work out to time-wise to work on something like that. Like there's a lot of factors, and in the end, it may very well come out that a lot of the things that you see in concept paintings, and I feel like, this should be kind of a no-brainer, but like it's one thing to look at these things and go, that's what we're shooting for and we're going to do it 100% and it's going to be awesome. That's not realistic. However, it's a lot easier to proceed in a direction when you've got something acting as kind of a goalpost, which is what these concept paintings do. One, they give us a way to kind of like align in our conversations about what we're even shooting for in the first place. We get to cheat. We get to basically look ahead with a painting. And two, it gives us a sense of where we're heading. Instead of just like trying on a bunch of things and slapping a bunch of stuff together, we will get something that looks cool that way, but it's nice kind of having an idea of what we're shooting towards. That way, whatever compromise we wind up at feels really good all around, and it's informed by something that can kind of show us like everything all working together. As someone with visual issues, I'd love to see more lights in houses. I would agree. I honestly think it would be super cute, especially in the Ascendancy. Like, I feel like the desert towns are so beautiful with all those like burning red lights, and then you get to the quiet little forest towns and it's just these kind of dim little patches of like pale yellowy green. Okay, so this image over here, I just changed it over in case you missed that. I'm going to click between these a few times. So this image right here represents a second step in that first paint over, in which I'm beginning to push the effect that the lights have on the area around them especially. So some of the feedback, of course, like even you guys came up with this, like, okay, this scene looks too bright overall. One of the other pieces of feedback that came from these initial steps was that the lights could still have more of an effect, like more of a visible effect on the world around them. And that's what this image was about. So you'll notice like the aura of the light around here is getting a bit brighter. It's more intense by the base of the door here. Over here, like especially if you look at this house over here, when we click over, that begins to brighten up. You can start to see shadows falling behind the berry bushes and this more delineated pool of light around this piece in the first ground. There are no posters we can buy yet, I'm sorry. Nighttime is horrible for me, says Niv Zamora. It's like daytime. Black nighttime. Yeah, so I don't know. I want nighttime to be I mean, like, it's... Oh, there's so many feelings about this. Like, it does need to be dark, but we need to put things in it that, like, make sense. Like, the world should be illuminated by whatever's up in the sky. It shouldn't just be pitch. And likewise, it needs to be dark enough that way when you do put a lantern out, it's not just like, yay, I put a cute lantern on my house and now it feels better. You feel like it's actually doing something. Like, imagine if this brighter green in the middle here was because there were lanterns on the houses. That would be pretty neat. And we'll get to more on that in a little bit. And this image here, I just clicked over one more time. This image right here represents a final pass on this version of nighttime in the game. So you can see it packs a lot more polish than this one here. There was a lot more time between these two. And over, like, you'll see, like, there's an immediate radius of effect where the light is, like, the things closest to it are super bright. The area around it has been, like, much more harmonized. It's less of an argument of a lot of different colors and values, and it's a lot more at peace with itself. Like, this kind of tangy blue that was up here in the upper right has been calmed down just a little bit. You can start to see how this light specifically is affecting this area over here by the lamp. Instead of it just being like, womp, here's a big blurry brush of something right here. Like, now it's actually like, okay, it's pulling out color, it's pulling out shape. Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure I'm not losing anybody in the chat while I'm talking about all of these things that we've been working on. It's been so many things. But yeah, so like specifically the light in this scene is having an effect on the objects nearest to it and is pushing out light from it. This style of night, I'll call it a style of night because there's a second one, specifically focuses on maintaining some of that blueness that we already have in the game, but balancing it out in a way that also allows the lights to have more of an impact on the scene as you see it. So if we compare that scene really quick with this one, this feels suddenly so much darker. Like, what if we, let's do this so we can have them both open at the same time. Just so we are able to like compare these side by side a little bit. They may not be quite big enough, but bear with me, it's better than nothing. If we compare that with Nighttime Blue 3, oop. Like, this feels so much warmer and so much more alive, even though it's still attempting to preserve a lot of the lightness that you get in this scene over here. Hey, Mally, thanks for joining us. Okay, cool. We'll leave this window open in case we need it for something else a little later on. Oh, no, don't zoom in all the way. Okay. So as I mentioned, this is just one version of the final of like tonal aspirational nighttime, if we want to call it that. Again, these are concept paintings. They don't necessarily represent a perfect roadmap of what we are planning to do, rather than a goalpost for what we are, a goalpost to kind of guide our decision making going forward, if that makes any sense. So some of the feedback that this scene got was about the color of the lights being very neutral. Like, if you imagine a campfire and imagine, like, well, I mean, you could, similar to in our game, imagine characters sitting around a campfire. They would be illuminated like orange from the light of the flames, and similarly, like with the lights in our lanterns and things like that, they would cast a specific color of light. It's not just about pulling up the values of the daytime colors into the scene where that pool of light is. So what could we do to this scene in order to make it feel like the light that's being shed by these lanterns is like the right color, that kind of like that richness, that believability that's kind of missing from here. Though again, this scene is balanced in particular to play off of the blue values, because when you start trying to have everything be colorful at the same time, you wind up with an argument, like in this image here. So this is a nightmare. This was like a first time trying to add color to the light, and it went wrong in 80 directions. It wound up having this kind of like vivid ectoplasmic green around the fire pit. And I was like, when I was first doing it, I was here and I'm like, oh, hey, now we've got this like nice orange glow on the, what's happening out here? Oh, this is the worst. And what wound up being the case was exactly what I said a second ago. Like, having a lot of color in the lights, having any hue of a lot of color in the lights, and also a lot of color in the ambient darkness, it's kind of a disaster, because everything is sort of yelling at one particular level of color all at the same time, and you don't really know where to look. Nothing is dark enough to support that kind of light or to call attention to that kind of detail, and there are really no, it's not acting like an accent color, because everything is so colorful. Except maybe the bright bells, funny enough. Now they actually draw quite a lot of attention to themselves because they're kind of the odd man out. So the answer to this was to neutralize the dark area and to bring those down a lot more clicks, so that nighttime itself becomes like even more rich and velvety, like more of those like stronger but less saturated blue and purple and teal. That way, where there do need to be the bright bursts of colors, where light is being thrown around, those things can be a bright, vivid color, and it doesn't feel like a lot of competition. So that's how we wound up with these kind of like two styles of nighttime paintings. And again, this kind of came back to some of our original feedback of like making it feel more like the light being cast by these is affecting it. Like, I feel like in a final realization of something that would follow either this example or this one, the area of the luminosity of this scene would probably be greater than it is in this painting. But for the sake of the painting, it feels very, well, to me anyway, it feels like very quaint, very nice. Like, these to me feel very warm and inviting. And like when I look at the scene around, it's like, oh man, I would not want to send my Hearthling out there like without a torch. You know, I want them to be able to see. So suddenly it starts to have more of an impact now, instead of just like, I put a lamp on the outside of my house because it looks nice. Now when you put a lamp on the outside of your house, it lights up the face of the house, or the area around your fire pit, or the area around the fence. It casts color. So it remains a very cute feature of what you're doing, but it also starts to serve a purpose. And that's something that we're, from here, going to be continuing to push more on. Also, it would be super cool if we had fireflies. I'm not promising anything, but I am advocating for these guys, if it's at all possible. Because my main thing, once again, to take us all the way back to the beginning of this conversation, is nighttime in Stonehearth should not feel terrifying. So maybe when the sun goes down and things get, you know, the hearth lights up and things get kind of quiet and strange around, like, things that only happen at night, that make night kind of not scary, but more like mysterious and cool as its own thing, come out, like fireflies or glowing flowers or types of mushrooms that you can't see in the daytime because they glow when the sun goes away, or something like that. But ways of making nighttime its own kind of magical thing that can be very warm and very mysterious, in the same way that daytime is like, you know, it's safe, it's happy, it's cool. Nighttime also has a set of things about it that make it alluring, not just like, oh man, everybody go inside, we're gonna get eaten by goblins. Exactly, to what Cher is saying, does anyone else think fairies that float around in the forest would be a nice way to light things up? That's exactly the sentiment that I'm offering here. It's like, when the sun goes away, now you are able to see things that you can't when the sun is in the sky, just like stars. So you look forward to it. Also, you should look forward to seeing how cute your town is when it's lit up at night, because it's so darn cute. Let's see. So there's that. And what else have we been doing? Oh, big dumb circles. This is a fun folder. You know what? We're not going to look at big dumb circles. No one should look at big dumb circles. What have we been doing? So kind of building off of that, since all of those studies were more or less about not just how cute to make something at night, but the play of light. So anyone who has played Stonehearth should know that we have, and if you haven't played Stonehearth, I guess that would be a better way to start this. You know what? Forget it. We have building modes in Stonehearth that give you ways of viewing your houses with, like, as if they had cutaways. So here are just some like concept paintings that kind of take a play on that, and these would be kind of like an incredibly illustrated look at what we currently in the game have as RPG mode, which the walls nearest to you come down and the roof goes away and you can see into all of the homes. Similarly, we also have, why are these up first? Oh, because they're PSDs, cool. Similarly, we also have a mode in which all of the walls and the roof come down, and this is X-ray mode. And this is cool, so you can like see in at everything. So we can see into everything, and you know, you can still see what's going on outside, you can still see what's going on inside, because obviously Stonehearth is not a first-person game. You're not just like one little avatar and you're going to walk into the house and look around. This gives us a way to peek in on what everybody's doing, aside from attempting to wiggle the camera around so we can spy them through the window. So what happens when we start playing with lights when the walls come down? And that's kind of what these paintings were about. They were also about trying to actually like take this scene over here and build it in-game and like do paint-over treatments to it to see like what was possible within the space that we've got. So you're gonna see a couple of fun little details in here that don't currently exist in the game. Coasters Paul says, I need to work on my interior game. I recommend starting with doodles. Seriously, when I start just in the building editor, I'm incredibly lame about interior design. In fact, I tend to ignore it completely. Spoiler, that's why a lot of the tier 2 templates didn't have any furniture inside of them until Mally went and put furniture inside of them, because I was always looking at the outside of the house and I figured that players would want to do that later. So this has actually become a very recent thing for me, is like looking at how we structure the inside of the house to make it like cool and functional and like, you know, kind of adorable. Okay, so this is the outside of the house, and this is important because you see these two lanterns here, you see them here. This is a series of paintings about not only making X-ray mode look cute, but how lights behave, and not just lights being cast by a lantern outside. Again, the walls are down, so we don't want it to be like the interior is now lit from the lamps outside. Would be kind of weird, especially if at a certain point we start attributing like stats around whether or not your hearthling is well lit. Like, let's say you have a house and there are no lamps in the house, but there are lamps outside of the house, and all you have to do is go to X-ray mode, and now all the hearthlings in that house are happy because they're well lit. That seems kind of weird. Also, that was a butchery of anything, so don't listen too closely to me there, but hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. So making sure that we have like an idea of what interiors in X-ray mode look like, depending on if the lights are on inside, if there are windows, like can light come in, what does that look like? If lights are on both inside and outside, how does that look? Does it look like super weird? So that's kind of what these are all explorations of, and these are super new. So this is the exterior of the house that I was using for this. It's not incredibly thoughtfully designed just yet. It's super basic, but we'll go into it. Okay, so this was just the mock-up that I did. Okay, I don't have a version of this that's just painted over. It goes straight to this. Interesting. Okay, here's just the painted over version. So this version here imagines what X-ray mode could look like if the house that this was built into did not have any windows. So it would be dark in there. So how would that look? Would it just go, it shouldn't just go like completely black, because that would be like really jarring in just the whole aesthetic of your game if you went into X-ray mode and suddenly you had like these weird black holes everywhere. So trying to imagine what like an appropriate level of darkness, like definitely enough to indicate to a player that they should probably put a window in that house or put a light in there or something, but not so much that it would like aesthetically fall out from everything else and look super, super terrible. So like this is imagining if there were no windows in this house and for some reason you made it into a bedroom, I guess because that was what you wanted. Whereas this one is basically, this was the paint over treatment of this scene, but for a while this was acting as an interior with windows, and this gets touched up on right here, because if you look in here, this is a pretty flat painting. So again, this was me going in and like painting over everything and starting to play with the concepts of like, hey, this is a wood floor, what does that mean, and are there like small touches we can add to that to make it feel more like wood flooring. And the same if like you look at the details like on the edges of the slab up here, that starts to feel more like a cross-section of a wood log, and even in the columns over here. Whether or not these things are incredibly feasible, not so sure, but the idea of pushing them this far in the illustration was to see, like, given the proportions and what we already have in the game, is it possible to create something that is approaches the aesthetic of these charming little illustrations? But without the problems of like, hey, if you think about it, like a shape like this that's like maybe 3 voxels high on top of a voxel that is like a more reliable terrain size bit, if a hearthling were to walk up there, their foot would have to go through that. Where would they stand? How would that work? Like, it starts to break a lot of things, or like this weird irregular height for this down here, that wouldn't really work. So before we go into like dissecting that too much further, what can we do with what we have? And how far do we need to push it to achieve that level of aesthetic? And you'll notice like there's like very small edits, and these are things that could be like baked into voxel models. Not going overboard with texture, not going overboard with detail, because it's not, I don't think it's in any way to Stonehearth's discredit that it is very light on the noise. Like, I definitely hope that we will in fact very soon come to a period where we can start exploring ways of like breaking up this huge expanse of green that you get, but it should never like get in and get like hyper fiddly with tiny details all over the place. It should have just enough to kind of add a few more visual cues. Oh, Don't Call Me Shirley was actually just asking. I'm trying not to ignore the chat, but I'm also trying to keep my keep my head and actually get us through some of these. Unfortunately, I do have kind of a hard cutoff here in about 20 minutes, but I want to make sure you guys have like a proper stream all about what's been going on. So bear with me. So Don't Call Me Shirley was saying, my apologies if this was already mentioned, but are there plans for putting extra textures on blocks, or will they remain solid single color blocks? So as I was just saying, one of the things I think Stonehearth has working for it, like really actually for it, but it's not quite there yet, if you know what I mean. It's not polished yet, is that there's like a cleanliness to it, a brightness to it, that it doesn't clutter it up. Like I look at the assets in the world in Stonehearth, and I get kind of like a soft vinyl toy feel from it, instead of like it being like incredibly cluttered up with noise, because everything within the game's aesthetic, especially currently, is so incredibly stylized that it seems weird to me to try and go in and put like realistic textures on it. I think that's kind of it's a mismatch. It seems like it would make sense, but it's like it doesn't make the voxel look any less like a voxel. So rather than trying to disguise that, what I would love to do is like find minimal touches and things that we could add to what we do really well to like kind of finish it, if that makes any sense. Like those little touches of polish, like going in and adding just a few areas where the color is a little bit different, or if we could bevel the edges between these blocks so that you could see like a little tiny bit of texture in there. Well, not like texture in the sense that we've put information on the surface of the voxel, but like geometry, I guess would be the better word. I'm still figuring out how to word all of these things real good. I speak good. Or like the rings of the wood inside of the columns. They're not realistic. They never approach realism, or like you in the real world would expect to put your hand on that and feel the wood grain, but it's a very stylized look at what wood grain means in a world that is much simpler. Or like these kind of like nubs that you get here, as if like irregularities from the weaver or something like that. They're not like hypertextural threads through everything, but there's just enough things here to add like those little touches of visual interest and just finish it enough. Oh no, I'm sorry, Don't Call Me Shirley. Thank you so much, Coasters Paul, for paraphrasing all of that. Nibsamura is asking if there's going to be a way that we can add our own textures. I am not sure how to answer that, but maybe Mally might know more about it. So Mally, if you're listening, if you have any insights on that, that would be awesome. Oghead, thank you for joining the stream. Hello, hello. And Moobot, my goodness. Let's see. Where were we? Insides. Okay, so this was the paint over that was like I was just saying, taking this and trying to get it to approaching like this level of aesthetic. Cool. So we covered that, and as I mentioned before, this is like. Thanks, Mally. Mally responds, we don't know if we are going to add textures yet, so it's way too early to answer for you. Cool. Alright, so this paint over here is an edited version of this one that has a slightly more realistic shadows and imagines that light, and imagines that light would be coming through the windows. So if the windows are in this wall, it would be striking these surfaces here, maybe bouncing a little bit onto the tops of things, maybe casting some shadows. And again, speaking solely to like the illustration side of this piece, not necessarily to the execution side of it. But again, trying to set this up to be a slightly more believable scene. Alright, so lights out. What happens to this scene when it's nighttime and there are no windows and no lights at all? Well, first of all, these lamps aren't lit up, so even if there were windows here, they wouldn't help anything. But the main thing that I wanted to be able to show in this scene is that the interior here is not benefiting from the lighting out here that might be what's hitting the tops of these lanterns or the tops of this geometry outside. And this was kind of a weird little moment in these paintovers, was trying to figure out if these cross-sections of wall were inside of the house or outside of the house. And in the end, I reasoned that they would be they would be affected by anything outside, because when you're if inside the house, you would only really be able to see this interior face of everything anyway. And that might not wind up making any sense at all, but it seemed to at the time, and all of this is pretty incredibly abstract anyway, so I will take it. Okay, so this paintover imagines that now we have lanterns, and they are on. And you'll also notice the effect that they have, similar to the nighttime paintings, on the voxels around them, and how they're actually illuminating the ground, bringing up that kind of like cooler teal and like a cooler, like almost purpley brown in the shadows. And these lights, these colors here were achieved effectively by adding effect layers to the daytime scene. So those are those same colors that have been turned this way, and then those same colors that have been affected one more time by the light being thrown off of these things. So again, trying to simulate the way that might actually work as much as possible without cheating too much, though again it may be a moot point. So you can see that definitely the lamps are having an effect on the world around them and hitting the outside of this, but not the inside, not yet anyway. But what if they could? Like, so if there's a window here, would the interior be affected by any of this stuff? And this might be a little bit awkward at the moment because the windows aren't casting any shadows, and this actually came up a little bit today. So if we run over here really fast, so this scene right here is a really sloppy way of being like, oh, what would it look like if it did actually cast shapes on the inside and not just like a calm wash of color. So that's just another version of the same idea of, can light from the outside come in through the windows and affect the inside of a house in X-ray mode, and what that looks like. Let's go back to this one. Can light come through a door? Like, if you imagine this door opening, what would that look like? Would it spill light onto the interior? And of course, finally, what does it look like when you turn a lamp on in there? How does that play between like the interior with the lighting, the exterior with the lighting, and things still being affected by the ambient lighting as well? So you still have that blue on the tops of these things to some degree. It wouldn't be completely washed out. And then lastly, what does it look like if there are no lamps outside, but there's lighting on the inside? So yeah, that was all these guys. And other than that, I did a handful of other comparisons based on some of the stuff that was popping up in those studies. Namely that the windowless interior in the daytime, which was painted to look dark, was adjusted for the nighttime version to be a bit darker in order to provide a better contrast between the interior and the exterior. Because originally with these values, it blended in too much with the exterior. It was too bright, but these values felt more right. Like, this feels almost like there's a weird dim light on in here. It didn't feel good. And then these were studies that showed the difference between all the lighting layers that I made on top of the values of darkness. So like always on the left side you will see the windowless daytime interior and the windowless nighttime interior on the right, and how those colors mingle with the light and the effects coming through all here. So all around this is like bluer and lighter, and this is much more contrasty. And then likewise, this is a comparison that shows what the interior lit by the lamp looks like versus the interior lit by the windows, and both in the daytime, so that your eye isn't confused by the values in the nighttime scene. Because when you look at these side by side, it's not immediately evident, aside from the direction that the lighting is coming from, that the interiors are incredibly different. You also have like the competition of like your eye going, oh, this is blue and this is orange, so all this feels good to me, and you don't really realize how different that is. So yeah, that has been a whole lot of things. And again, these are kind of like, especially like for studies of lighting and what we would like lighting to be able to do. The things that I'm going over in these concept paintings, once again, they're not 100% indicative of what we are going to do. But they start us in a place where we can all have a conversation about the same thing, and they kind of point us all in the same direction, so we can get somewhere that feels better than where we are. Excuse me. Yay, it's Stonehearth this time. Last time some girl was tricky and playing The Sims. Oh my goodness. And sorry, Chewy I can't, unfortunately I can't run over this time. We have another thing, like, in about 10 minutes, but I wanted to make sure that we got through all the cool stuff we've been up to lately, so you guys could see some of our concept art adventures. And if you guys have any questions about any of the paintings that we've been looking at for this stream, definitely let me know. I'll answer them to the best of my ability, with my illustrator brain. What else can we look at before we're done here? Oh, hey, right, so I'm sure you guys have already seen it, but in case you haven't, the last time we did a stream together, you guys and me, we worked on the splash screen. I wonder if I've got one in here. Oh, let's say 20. Did I mess up? Oh, did I mess up? These are the thumbnails. That seems weird. UI, trouble saves. I was hoping A16, animation. I must be looking right past it. Poop. Oh, whoa, old Stonehearth things. Don't look there. Neat. So this feels bad. Sorry guys, I guess I didn't think that far ahead. Don't Call Me Shirley is saying, at Stonehearth, if it's possible this stream, I just have to ask any possible hints as to what's in the next alpha. Well, I know what I'm doing. I don't know. I don't know if it would be good for me to answer that here. And I think that's still something that we're sorting out at the moment. But I hope we can talk about that soon. Excuse me, I'm still recovering from a big bug. It's like we've been working on a whole bunch of different things, but I'm not sure which ones would be cool to talk about, and I don't want to give anybody, like, the wrong impression of what's going on at the same time, especially with respect to things that my other teammates are touching. That would be, I feel like that would be inconsiderate of me. Oh goodness, Nivzamora, don't even worry about it. Like, you guys have the, excuse me, you guys have the chat over there, like, please, this is the time where you are, it's a chance for you guys to, like, tune in. Honestly, why are we just looking at this list? I should actually pull things up. It's a time for you guys to, like, tune in and see what we're up to, ask questions, and that also means to, like, not just to the person streaming, but to anybody who might be available, like, one-on-one in the stream. Like, this is your time to actually, like, reach out and make contact with us and see what we're up to, get feedback, etc. I agree. Nivzamora also says hot tea and honey and hot salt gargle. These are the things I know very, very well, and I need to do a lot more of. It's been a rough one, but thank you so much for reminding me. Chair is asking about cultist. What about the cultist? Feral Gerald says, mumbles something about some bunny god. I wouldn't know anything at all about that whatsoever. I'm afraid I'm gonna have to leave you guys hanging with that, but maybe more soon? Sispam says, I really enjoy seeing all the different things that go into creating the game, and the additional conversations in the chat just add to the enjoyment. exactly. That's my sentiment too. So like, don't ever worry about any of that. Like, you guys are here, make use of the time in whatever way is awesome for you. Like, we want this to be where the community can kind of come in and have that. I also think it's funny too, Feral Gerald. I'm very excited by the cultist trait simply because it exists and it excites my imagination. And I hope that it does the same for all of you. It was fun coming up with an icon for that as well. So that's, I was hoping when I first glanced at this stream in the calendar that we would have like work on the icons to do, because that's super fun and super exciting. And it goes really quick too, so it's nice and bite-sized. But alas, I was done with all of that by the time this rolled around, and we were left with nothing but wall painting. And I was sitting there fretting today about all that. But luckily, I forgot we had all of these like cool paintings that we could like go over together and see what's been happening. Nivsamora is saying, I wouldn't mind if at some point this was an option to make night less night-like, but that's a blind chick whine, not a this needs to be more here for normal people. But you're not entirely wrong. So the goal of all the nighttime studies has essentially been like, how can we make lamps do more than just sit on your house and twinkle? So like, if you look at the difference between these two scenes, like when these lamps come on, they're not just like a hot little yellow sparkle right here that make a little green puddle. They're actually like putting a yellow glow on this house. They're casting out this huge area of like teal. And that's something that we want them to be able to do. So like when you play your game, especially with an eye to nighttime, which, you know, happens every single day, right? You're putting out lamps in order to make it feel like more warm and welcoming around your town, around your walkways, around that creepy shed that you built in the woods for some reason. Don't worry about it. But effectively, like, your actions impact the look of the world that or your Hearthling's actions, I should say. You are essentially only ever their guide. Impact the look of the world around you and have that effect. And also, again, once we want to be able to put things in nighttime that make it feel like really cool and unique. Oh, I'm sorry. You can't even see the houses with the lights. My town will look like New York City. Yes, just put thousands of lamps everywhere, though I don't know if that's a good idea. It seems like it might end poorly. For your computer, anyway. Let's see, what else is there? I'm trying to think of if there's anything else that I've got that I can share with you guys. I'm still mad that I could have swore I put the splash screen somewhere we could get at it so I could show you guys where it wound up. I mean, you should be able to see it already. But still. Stream, old mood boards. No, this is what we did that one time. These are all like a bunch of more concept paintings about like tonal studies and color and stuff like that. Oh, hey, this is the daytime painting. That's fun. I wish I'd have put that in there. With Hearthlings, yay! Shape language. Oh no, BB, and I'm sorry. The stream is actually an hour early today, and I'm about to finish because I have to. I do have a hard cutoff today. As much as I wish we could stay later and actually like. The only reason I'm not drawing right now is because as soon as we get the document set up, it's going to be time to go. I did have everything set up and ready to go. But I was hoping, because the nature of today's work is not incredibly exciting. I'm actually very glad that we mostly just had cool paintings to look at and talk about. Oh, Oghead says, that reminded me of Ragnarok Online. I played that so much with my friends when we were kids. That was amazing. Amazing good times. I look back very fondly on that. So super cool. I guess before I'm out of here, does anybody have any more questions about like the art today, or just have a thing to say? Lamplight comparisons. Glad to hear it, Nivzamora. Thanks so much for joining. Kranos is saying, I can't wait for stuff like the Magma Smith, 10,000 hours, hopefully extending the designer to the point where I can create some segmented forces. We're working on it, we're working on it. I'm sorry, BB. It was, we had kind of a weird conflict with the schedule this week, so the fix was a bit last minute. But yes, you can look at it on the YouTube. We spent today's stream going over a lot of the concept paintings that we've been up to most recently. So it's a lot of studies about nighttime and lighting and stuff like that. Oh man, I will keep that in mind, Doghead, but I am currently trying to just get through my insane backlog of video games that keeps growing because of all the really cool video games that are coming out right now. So, yeah. But anyway, thanks everybody so much for joining the stream today. I'm glad you all had fun taking a peek into the world of concept art on Stonehearth and all the things that we get up to, painting lights and fireflies and glowing flowers so that one day when you build your town, it's so cute at night, you're sad when the sun comes up. But not just that it's cute, it's also functional, and you feel like when you put lights down, they're actually doing something other than, like, sparkling. I'm glad they sparkle. I still love the way, especially in Raya's Children, I love the way lamps look, but I'm also very excited by the idea that at some point they're going to obviously do something more for your environments. So everybody, thanks again for tuning in, and I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day, wherever you may be. And tune in next week for more inside looks at all the things that we're currently up to on Stonehearth. So thanks again, everybody, for coming, and have a good night.